It gives me great honor and a privilege to introduce Miriam Ring, now Stender. Miriam, you told us, and it was such a nice that we met you today here in Netanya, that your father was in the actual Mir.
Yes.
And he got a visa from Sugihara.
Correct.
And he went to Shanghai and then to America.
Right. And I saw the list in the Skokie Chicago Holocaust Museum. There's an area of the museum where it tells the entire story of Sugihara, and there's a copy of the list. And my father is number 1,124 on the list. And growing up, he told us many stories about the trip on the train to Vladivostok. They actually stopped in Moscow, and he saw Red Square when they were in Moscow, and how they got to Vladivostok, later to Japan. He said the Japanese people were very kind to the Jews. They were not wealthy, but whatever they had, they shared with them. And then in September, because the Japanese at that time knew already that they had plans against the United States, they took all the foreign people who were there and they sent them to Shanghai, which at that time was under the control of the Japanese. And that's how he ended up in Shanghai for 5 years together with the Mir. There were also people from Chabad there. There was a bunch of boys from Chabad who were together with him. And that's how he survived the war.
And did your father speak a lot about his experiences in the original Mir in Poland?
He always spoke about it with the highest regard. He loved yeshiva. He loved the Talmidim. He loved the whole life, but not really about many.
And learning, he was.
Oh, what about the shul in China? Oh, what my father spoke about was the most amazing thing, that when they got to Shanghai, there was a shul either built by the Sassoon family or the Kaduri family, a wealthy Jewish family. It was built in the 1920s, and it was an enormous shul, and it was like the movie, If You Dream It, Field of Dreams, it will happen. The shul had room for everybody, and that's where they learned and stayed during the war. And across the street from the shul was Gestapo headquarters.
Wow.
So they would walk into the yeshiva every day with an enormous Nazi flag staying directly across from them when they went to the yeshiva. And initially, in the beginning in Shanghai, things were very tolerable, but later on in the war, the Germans did convince the Japanese to move the Jews into a ghetto. So for the end period of the war, they were in a ghetto, but they were able to manage. And unfortunately, at the very end of the war, it's quite ironic, the Americans bombed Shanghai, and I believe it was over 200 Jewish people who had survived the entire time were killed in that bomb. My father lost. He ran out of his building. It was personally very sad to him. He had a suitcase with the pictures of his family, whatever he had that he had taken with him the entire time from Poland, and it was completely destroyed. So he came here. He had.
But thank God he survived.
No, thank God he survived.
There's stories that buildings that the Yeshiva Bochrim were in, and then when they left, the building just collapsed.
Right, but thank God he survived. He came to the United States on a ship called a troop carrier called the General Mike's, and he arrived here September 14th, which was his birthday. And he also left Japan on September 14th of 1941, and he cried tears of sadness when he left Japan, and he cried tears of joy when he got to the United States.
And did he continue in his learning?
Always
to be in the Mir, he used to...
Always continued learning.
And he knew about...
He ended up living in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and there was a very prominent rabbi there, Rabbi Teitz. He gave the Gemara Shia for Rabbi Teitz. There was not a day that I can remember that my father didn't have a sefer open and learn. Although he never became a Rosh Yeshiva or a pulpit rabbi, he said his father, who owned the mill in the town that he came from Poltusk, Poland, was very opposed to the Bachram going into the rabbinate. He said, "You'll never make a living doing that." But he never gave up on his learning, and he was, I think, one of the happiest things that ever happened to him. He had 4 daughters. But my daughter, our second daughter, married a rabbi, Musmach from the Mir Yeshiva, and he used to sit and learn with him from Yeshiva University, and he used to sit and learn with him, and he's the rabbi in Skokie. That's how I went to the Skokie Holocaust Museum, and it was just like the biggest thrill to sit and learn Gemara together with his grandson-in-law.
Well, Baruch Hashem, thank God, and it's been really such a tremendous honor to meet you and your husband.
No, it's our honor. It's the biggest coincidence.
It's Min Hashamayim. The whole story of Sadi Gano and Sugihara is really all Min Hashamayim.
Right, and I look forward what you said, that he's still somebody that you can speak to and everything. It will be a great privilege to meet him. Absolutely.
Definitely. And now you're in Israel, please God, you'll connect with Sadi and you'll meet the person that, according to your Kika Sugihara, influenced her husband to do the visas.
And I wish
Thank you
Shabbat
so
Shalom.
much.
Shabbat Shalom l'kulam.